In January 1925, 800 soldiers and two armored trains burst into Shanghai. The defenders retreat in panic. Soon the city of 3 million will fall completely into the hands of the attackers. But who were these warriors who inspired such terror in the enemy? They were Russians.
Russian soldiers and white Russian émigrés began arriving in China in the early 1920s, immediately after the end of the Russian Civil War. There were said to be quite a few of them. These Russians mainly lived in northern China, around the city of Harbin, which was considered the main cradle of Russian emigration.
The Russian military personnel in China were treated fairly well, but there was not enough work and the émigrés lived in poverty.
They lived on the equivalent of just a few dollars a month. They barely had any steady work or reliable income.
At that time, a power struggle was unfolding in China. Communist members of the Kuomintang National Party and local dictators fought for territory. Zhang Zuolin, an ambitious general, controlled Manchuria and several other provinces. His main rival was Wu Peifu, the ruler of central China. Both leaders needed men, and at some point Zuolin remembered the battle-hardened Russian forces.
They were willing to do it for two reasons. First, they were sure it would improve their financial situation because General Zhang Zuolin offered a very good sum for their service. And on the other hand, they believed that by fighting in Zhang Zuolin's army, they would bring closer such a victorious return to Soviet territory and fighting against the communists, yes.
Initially, Russian military men worked as instructors, training machine gunners, engineers, and cavalrymen. Soon an aviation detachment appeared, including about 40 professional pilots, followed by a Russian brigade. By the mid-20s, it numbered over 3,000 men. Led in 1924 by the respected General Konstantin Nechayev, who had previously worked as a cab driver in Harbin.
Importantly, these were largely men who had been through World War I and the Russian Civil War. So these were real soldiers with good combat experience, with a practical knowledge of their profession. Therefore, as soon as they participated in the fighting, it immediately yielded real results.
In their first battle, a Russian detachment of 200 men utterly crushed a superior enemy. Force Wu. Peifu's troops retreated in disarray, suffering heavy losses, while the whites of Afghanistan in the next battle. Nechayev's men distinguished themselves again, capturing 1,500 soldiers and a considerable number of trophies with only one wounded soldier.
General Nechayev was awarded the rank of general in the Chinese army. He was highly respected even among the Chinese. All strategic decisions were made considering his position and recommendations.
Gradually, Wu Peifu's star faded and Zhang Zuolin led the race for power. One notable event in the confrontation between the two marshals was Zuolin's capture of Shanghai with his White Guard mercenaries.
He captured it with the help of armored trains. These armored trains, Fungi King in particular, played a major role in Zuolin's military successes. His white Czechs moved them from Russia because several such armored trains had been built in Russia. And for the period of the First World War and after, armored trains were considered a very powerful and effective weapon.
The war with Wu Peifu lasted until March 1925, but the morale of the Russian volunteers gradually began to decline, which led to military setbacks.
It should be said that General Nechayev's star began to fade in 1925 when he was first wounded in battle. He was seriously wounded in 1926 and his leg was amputated. He was out of action for some time for treatment, and upon his return, he saw that the Russian unit had well fallen apart.
As some were tired of fighting for Chinese interests, others left the service due to salary problems. By then, the Nechayev Brigade was fighting against the Kuomintang, which was actively supported by the Soviet Union. But Zhang Zongcheng didn't achieve any decisive victories. In 1928, Soviet intelligence blew up his train, and the Generalissimo was killed.
So, in the late 1920s, General Nechayev was forced to disband the Russian detachment. And in this race between General Zhang Zonglin and Wu Peifu, well, neither general actually won in the end.
The Russian detachment serving the Chinese lost by various estimates between 1,500 and 2,000 men. After the dissolution, the soldiers were paid and given temporary residence permits. General Konstantin Nechayev himself resigned from the army and settled in Daren. In August 1945, Soviet counterintelligence arrested him as an accomplice of the fascists and delivered him to Chita. A few months later, the general was shot.
Some historians even say our émigrés really changed the course of Chinese history because Wu Peifu also collaborated with the communists. Some believe that if he had won before the Russian émigrés intervened, China would have taken a different path, and a socialist system could have emerged there as early as the 20s.